Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties, from Keweenaw to Monroe, Chippewa to Berrien, brought to you by the Michigan Association of Counties.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by Michigan Association of Counties. Again, are we still calling this a podcast? I don't ever know what to call this because sometimes we video, live, recorded, but anyway, thanks for joining us. It's been a while since we've done one, but we do have a ton of information to go through today. There's been a lot going on. It's the holiday season, so why don't we start off with some real good news. Deena, tell us what passed yesterday, and Meghann, both of you worked very hard on this. It was really a great team effort. We had board members calling people. We had MAC board members, county commissioners. What happened yesterday? Fill us in.
We passed 4-year terms for county commissioners.
We did, finally.
So excited. The feedback we've gotten from our members has been extraordinary, and it feels so good to be able to bring them this kind of victory, something that they've been asking for forever. It's been since the 60s since they've had 4-year terms. Anyway, passed the Senate several months ago. Really tried to get it through the House as quickly as possible and before the end of the year. It was several weeks on the House floor, waiting for them to consider it and take a vote. Did lots of, trying to count votes and really talking to former county commissioners who, many of them helped bring this home. Those House members that were, former county commissioners really worked to help us bring this home. Our board members were amazing. Jim Story, this is for you, Jim Story, Allegan County. So much effort. He came and testified in the Senate, in the House. He called different counties. He pushed for all those resolutions to be passed across the state by all of our county boards in support of it. I mean, he was really a rock star. Steve, I don't even know how many board members you talked to over the past few days trying to get, votes turned, and they all made phone calls and put in tons of effort. It's pretty exciting. Sorry, I could ramble.
And I think huge shout out to the bill sponsors, Senators Ed McBroom and Jeremy Moss. This is the second time they've attempted this. Over 4 years, they've tried 2 different bill packages. They've been really real champions on it as well.
They were fantastic. They both testified in the House committee on it as well, and just were very articulate. They understood some of the opposition about really being responsive to your constituents, and they dealt with those challenges from the House members who were not quite sure in such an eloquent way. I mean, they've explained that our county commissioners are there with their constituents every day. They are close to them. They are extremely responsive, and both Moss and McBroom just had nothing but great things to say about their county commissioners. So huge shout out to them. You're right, Meghann. Huge shout out.
And a lot of former county commissioners that I think worked in those caucuses to help get things done too, Yeah. And it was pretty convincing vote, right? It was 75 to 29, I think, was the final vote count on both bills, which is pretty significant. So great news there. Great work, everybody. Thanks for your help. Let's move on.
We should tell them, though, before we move on, we should tell them that it's for the 2024 election. So you'll run in 2022 on a 2-year term, but then in 2024 you'll be running for a 4-year term.
Correct. Good point.
So, yeah.
And we are still going to have a signature by the governor. So it's being presented to the governor. So it's not like a public act yet, not officially a law, but we've had conversations with the governor's team. They've been overly supportive this entire time. So shouldn't have any problems, but just wait until it's final.
Right.
Good point. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Well, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Deena, Meghann, both of you been working on, obviously there's every year about this time, there's money to be spent typically or clawed back potentially. But right now there's some extra funds in the budgets. They're working on some supplemental bills right now. Deena, why don't you kick us off a little bit on some of the supplementals you've been working on, and then Meghann can fill us in on a couple that she's been working on.
Absolutely. Well, just so we've talked about this before in our podcast, but we're also part of a larger coalition, the Coalition for a Strong and Prosperous Michigan. And if you want details on what we're advocating for, you can go to www.myroadmap.com, and it's detailed out. Anyway, we've been working very hard for months trying to get the legislature to appropriate funds to help us at the local level. Out of their $6.5 billion that they got, we want them to actually allocate that to help us make our communities better. Had a lobby day on November 30th. Again, a huge shout out to our board members, because we had several board members that went with Meghann and I and Hannah all over the place to office after office. It was meeting after meeting after meeting where we went and met with senators and representatives and really encouraged them to act now, to start moving this money so that you at the local level can know what to plan for. Because if they allocate money to certain things, then it kind of changes the scope of the projects you guys are working on. So that being said, they've started to move them, and it's very exciting. The Senate passed out a $3.3 billion water supplemental. Very excited to see that. There's money in there for PFAS remediation, for loans for septic tanks. There's SAW grants in there. There's dam safety money in there. Let's see, what else? Healthy hydration, lead line replacement, especially for those communities that are really struggling with lead in their lines. So there's money in there for both the municipally owned lines that go to the house, and then the lines that go from the main line to the individual homes. There's money in there for watershed planning and culvert replacement. There isn't really any, there's some match money in there. There's like a 20% match, I think, on wetland mitigation money. But other than that, there's not very much match money required in the supplemental. So that passed out of the Senate, overwhelming majority. It's a huge priority for, the House, the Senate, and the governor. So the water supplemental is now over in the House. We don't expect it to get done, though, until January. We don't expect it to get to the governor's desk until January, but there is movement, and the conversations have really, really taken off. We've got public safety.
And that's that's on the Senate side, but the House has also been, focusing on their priorities as well. The Appropriations Committee heard from various stakeholder groups. One of the first ones they heard from was from law enforcement, sheriffs, chief of police groups, and heard from them about the challenges that they're really feeling every day. And I know our county commissioners are hearing from their sheriff's offices about recruitment and retaining the officers that they have. And so one of the first priorities that the House put through in their supplemental was about $360 million that would go towards public safety, a large portion of that on police recruitment and retainment. So there was almost 60 million for out-of-state recruitment, and also for fire and EMS. There's some lines on in there for mental health for our officers to support the ones that we have in our sheriff office now. So that came out of the full House. Now that's over in the Senate, so they're going to be evaluating each other's proposals kind of at this point. The House just started conversations on another supplemental that's almost or over $1 billion for healthcare related purposes. So there's funding for the monoclonal treatments, vaccines in school, or vaccine distribution in our health departments, for school support and testing in our schools. There's recruitment and funding that hopefully can address some of the workforce challenges that our healthcare industry is facing as well. So that conversation just started this week. I think there will be a lot more, particularly upcoming weeks here as we head into the Christmas season, because there's a lot that I think legislators want to get done, but we're really limited on days at this point. So I think they're only here maybe, gosh,
Tuesday next week.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe 2 days next week, but I'm hearing maybe one. So we're kind of down to the wire.
I think one of the things that we have heard that they absolutely want to get done though is they want to get done an economic development supplemental. We don't have details on that economic development supplemental. There's, you know, we know they want to get it done. We've heard $1 billion, but it's really not on paper yet, not for us to look at. It's going to conference committee. And so it's going to be in that conference committee where the dollar amounts and how that supplemental is going to be structured. It will be decided in that conference committee. So hold tight. When we get details, we get information, we'll report on it. But at this point, we don't have very many details. And then end of year close of books. Every year they have to do like a close of books. Okay, fiscal year 21 is over. We're in the fiscal year 22 budget now because that began October 1st. So they got to close the books for 21. You know, and that's just some, you know, I don't know what that's going to look like yet either. I really don't. I do know that they have more general fund than they thought they were going to have. And they can carry it over until next year, but they still have to dot some I's and cross some T's on programs that they had or expenditures that they had or didn't have during 21. So we'll wait and see what that looks like.
Still some work to be done, it sounds like, even though we're coming up to, like you guys said, right up to the deadline. But thanks for that. Veterans property tax exemptions. This is something that, you know, property tax exemptions is something we consistently fight against. The veterans property tax exemption, which was passed, I want to say 5-6 years ago at this point, which was a great concept. Of course, we want to support our disabled veterans out there, our veterans out there. However, you know, we don't want to hurt our county government revenue stream when doing so, or at least allow the county government to make that decision if they want to do that. So we finally have a fix to that. Deena, you want to talk to us a little bit about the newest proposal to make sure counties are reimbursed for that property tax exemption?
Absolutely. Very, very excited about Senator Bumstead's bills. There's Senate Bill 783 and 784. So for those of you that want to go look at them, go look at them. Very, very happy about it. Number one, it doesn't really change anything for the veteran, for the disabled vet. They still get their property tax exemption. It's just the process by which, you know, by where the money comes from to pay for that is going to be different. So right now, local units of government have been forced to absorb the losses associated with, you know, something the legislature gave to the disabled vets. But we all know we have so many obligations out there that, you know, we can't sustain it if we can't have our main revenue stream solid. So what Senator Bumstead's bill does is it has the vet apply for their property tax exemption like they always do, but that form is also going to include a homestead property tax credit, a refundable income tax credit in the amount of their property taxes. So the vet will go into the office, into the local taxing unit, apply for the exemption. That local tax collecting unit will send it off to the Department of Treasury. Department of Treasury will say, okay, yep, here's the amount of the property taxes, and then send the money back to the tax collecting unit for distribution. So in other words, we get reimbursed, finally. Now, I say that it hasn't gone through the process yet. It was introduced this week. We're very, very grateful for all the work Senator Bumstead has done on this, but this is the preferred method for reimbursing us. So I might have gotten a little ahead of myself there, but we do like this process best. Put it that way.
And Deena, what were those bill numbers again?
783 and 784.
Okay. And if I remember, I mean, I didn't pull them up yet, but he had pretty broad support co-sponsors on these, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He absolutely did.
And bipartisan support as well. So that's always good as well. That's always helpful. So that's good news. Good news. And then finally, you know, non-legislative issues, there's still some things going on that we wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. Meghann, you want to talk a little bit about the opioid settlement and some of the steps that folks need to take to ensure that they're going to recoup some of the costs that they've had with this lawsuit settlement?
Yeah, we've been putting out a lot of information on this recently. We had a webinar with some of the attorneys from the Attorney General office, as well as county representation. So there's a lot of resources on our website, but really, if you have not already gone to the National Opioid Settlement website, it's also on the county website, or reach out to me. You have to register there to even get additional information. You have to designate one person in the county to get information about the interstate settlement, what your allocation looks like for the county, and then from there, approve participation in the settlement, and that has to be due by January 2nd. So that deadline's kind of coming up quickly as well, especially with the holidays. I know many counties have already, submitted their participation form. So a lot of them are, good to go. But if you haven't registered or you haven't received any of that information, reach out to us. We can get you the links. We can get you all the information that you need, put you in touch with someone from the Attorney General's office if you have other questions that we can't answer, but just know that that deadline is coming up for participation on January 2nd. So, so if you haven't, definitely register. That doesn't mean you're participating in the settlement. It just gets you the information. And then from there, you take that second step to actually participate if you wish.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for that update. And then finally, Open Meetings Act changes. We've got some Open Meetings Act changes. We sent out an email, I believe yesterday, Megan, you sent out an email to board chairs and administrators on this. I want to reemphasize that. Both of you want to talk to that quickly?
Yeah, just a reminder, the ability to meet remotely and vote remotely ends at the end of the year. So you will have to resume in-person meetings. We had that kind of update due to COVID where you could have a local declaration of emergency, and that would allow the county board to participate and vote remotely. That will end at the end of this year. So on January 1, just be prepared to be in person, and I would definitely consult with legal counsel, make sure you have everything straightened out that you need to. I think it is important to note that we do have House Bill 5467 that was introduced by Representative Green. I know his county board had, and some of his commissioners had talked to him about essentially reverting back to a process that allowed members to vote remotely if you had a quorum physically present. So that's not even allowed as of January 1. And so he does have a bill to go back. The problem is it doesn't allow that vote in the way that he introduced the bill. It just allows you to attend, essentially be part of the discussion remotely if you have a quorum physically present, but it doesn't allow you to vote. So it doesn't get us all the way back there. We have had initial conversations with him expressing our interest to get back to pre-COVID OMA rules essentially. And I think there's some opportunity, but it definitely won't take place this year. And so we're going to have those conversations early next year, continue conversations with him, our other partners. We talked to MML because they're hearing from their members of the same concern, essentially, that there was almost this unintended consequence when we had to change the statute related to COVID protocols. So just be ready for January 1. I know that there is legislation out there that we're working on, but it's not going to be done before the end of the year. So,
Meghann, also, I don't know, and I think you and I have talked about this multiple times, and it's really, I'm not necessarily hopeful that they're going to revert back, at least anytime in the near future. And I hate to say it because I know that's not really good news, and I'd rather end on really good news, but it just doesn't seem like the legislature has the appetite to allow for remote participation like that or remote voting. Although it makes perfect sense to us and to our county commissioners, and we're still going to be here, fighting and advocating for it. I mean, Meghann, you talk about this probably twice a day, all over the place.
Yeah, I think right now it's a lot of members find that concept hard to struggle because we've been now in this 2 years where people want to get back to normal, and they feel very strongly that they come to the Capitol and they're here in person and they're voting on issues for their constituencies and believe that at the local level that should take place as well. So I do think it'll be a difficult battle, but again, it was almost something that wasn't intended in the first place. And so that's kind of the hope that this argument is, we just want to go back to how it was before.
Yeah, and I think
We'll
it's right
see.
that, it's something that's going to take some time for us to continue to work on with, with other partners, MML, MTA, those folks to
Mhm.
kind of keep working on legislators on that. I mean, if you think of how long it took us to get 4-year county commissioner terms done, sometimes government doesn't work quickly. So, but that's what we're here for. So, and I know it's something we'll continue to work on before the end of the next legislative session. So, well, anything else you guys want to add? That was the kind of the list I had.
I think that kind of
That's
covers
it.
it.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you guys, and we'll look forward to talking to everyone in the near future.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83, brought to you by the Michigan Association of Counties.